Hello, my friends. Happy Memorial Day. Let us not forget why we celebrate this day. It is for all those soldiers that died in battle that have left us. It's not Veterans Day. This is a day to remember our dead who serve this country proudly, whether they agreed with the conflict or not. And may God have mercy on their souls. It is Memorial Day. It's also one of the best weekends of the year for me because I love motor racing. So it usually starts off with the Monaco Grand Prix in Monaco, which was pretty good. Unfortunately, this year it might be the very last Monaco Grand Prix. They don't have a contract for next year, and one of the problems is if you're a Formula One fan, while it is probably the crown jewel on the circuit itself, the racetrack itself, provides zero passing zones, zero opportunity to really race. So the race itself is actually determined almost by qualifying. So if you end up on the pole, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to win from the beginning, unless you have a mishap in the pits. So they got to do something to make the racetrack more raceable, and that's what that's what the powers that be, Liberty Media and Monaco and everybody have to do. So that's one thing, one race, and then the next race coming up after that on Memorial Day is the Indianapolis 500, which this year was spectacular. They almost ruined it, but they didn't. I think Roger Penske's takeover of the IRL and his ownership of the Indy Motor Speedway has only done things to make the IRL probably now the premier series in America, usurping NASCAR. And I'll get to that in a second. But the racing was great. It was competitive. It had all the markings of a classic race. I feel bad for Jimmy Johnson. He almost made it the entire race, but he caused the last caution flag, which fell with about 6 laps to go. And so the IRL decided to pull a NASCAR moment and red flag the race. So I have very mixed feelings about this. I think if you're going to throw a caution, the driver should race back to the caution flag unless there's an accident in front of them. So everybody who has the accident behind them should still be able to race for position, while those drivers that are either caught up in it or avoiding it or whatever, their positions are fixed. It'll all work itself out when you restart the race. But the thought of actually having a caution flag coming in and you have a wreck behind you, and let's say you're racing for the lead side by side, and the caution flag comes out as you're entering turn 3 or between 3 and 4 or whatever, it doesn't really allow for you to race back to the checkered flag, and I think you need to do that. But anyway, the Ericsson, who won, with great win, and it really didn't affect the outcome of the race. They restarted the race. There were 2 laps to go. The guy who was leading ended up winning the race, and I kind of feel justified in him doing that, because I would have said, you know what, part of racing is finishing under caution, because you race until you can't race anymore, and you race the set number of laps until you can't race the set number of laps, and then you call it a race. And I think in the spirit of what they were trying to do, the IRL probably did the right thing. But I will tell you this, it was really, really nice to see the Indianapolis Motor Speedway packed to the brim with people. It was fantastic. And then finally, the race I didn't care about, which used to be my favorite race of all, is the World 600, the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. I've been there several times, used to get special seating, watched the race one year from the bar there in air-conditioned comfort. It was spectacular. It was a lot of fun. I think Mark Martin won that year. It used to be an unbelievable race, and it used to pack in, I don't know, almost as many people as Indianapolis. Probably 250,000 people used to go to that race. And if you remember, Charlotte used to have stands that went all the way down the front stretch into turn 1 and out to turn 2. I mean, that entire racetrack was almost covered with grandstands, and they were completely full. And you didn't have a bad seat in the house, quite frankly. So What happened to NASCAR? Well, a couple of things, my way of thinking. NASCAR decided that they wanted to have a series of sprint races instead of a race. Part of racing 500 miles, 400 miles, 600 miles is the endurance factor that happens when you race those distances. So in the past, you used to hit the green flag, you had caution flags for the wrecks, but you kept racing. NASCAR has done this dumbest thing in the world by setting up these little mini races within the big race. And in Charlotte, they had, I guess, 4 segments instead of 5 because they went 600 miles. Each segment was 100 miles, except the last one was 200. And they awarded points to the winners of each segment, which I don't have a problem with. My problem is that they race to a yellow flag. The flag is a yellow checkered flag. And so when you win that segment, the field gets to slow down, everybody gets to bunch up, everybody gets to pit, and everybody gets to reset their car. And that is not what endurance motor racing is all about. Endurance motor racing is you run what you brung, you make your adjustments, and you keep going. So if NASCAR wants to keep segment racing, I'm all for it. You know, they used to pay the guy money who was leading at halftime. At the halfway mark, he got a check because he was leading at the halfway mark. I realize they maybe want more passing or more something in the race, but part of the race is settling in and picking your spots as to when to go. So if you want to have segment racing, have it. Just keep the green flag going, and whoever is at the top 10 at the end of 100 laps, then you give them additional points. But they continue to go. You don't throw caution flags that aren't needed. You're basically saying, okay, this race is over. Let's line up for the next race. That's bull spit, personally, to me. Also, you close the pits 2 laps before, eliminating any strategic advantage somebody might pick up by short pitting and getting in there early. And that's interesting because at the Indy 500, the short pitting worked really well, as did Monaco. It actually allowed the Red Bull teams to overtake the Ferrari teams. So there is a strategy in pit stops that is totally taken out of the equation because of the way NASCAR rules currently run. If it were me, I would say, hey, NASCAR, guess what? You don't pit or you don't close the pits until the pits are physically blocked. The pits are open the whole time. You can still maintain your pit road speed limits. I think that's great for safety. I like the idea of the single lug nuts that they have, like every other race car has on it now, and I like that idea. I think it keeps things from flying around. It keeps a lot of nuts and bolts off the surface of the racing surface that could be spit out, hurt somebody, or get embedded in a tire, or be eaten up by a race car. So I think all that's great. But keep the pit lane open 100% of the time. And then when you have a caution flag, again, like I said previously, race back to the caution flag at the start-finish line. If the race is behind you, then or if the wreck is behind you, then you go on to race and continue to race till you see the yellow flag at the start-finish line. If the wreck is in front of you, then you are held in your position for safety reasons. The only time you don't need to do that is probably if you have the wreck at the start-finish line. And everybody's got a radio, and everybody's got spotters, and every spotter can tell their driver when that happens that they need to slow down. So there's not a hand signal or safety issue there. Or you could even have a flag that says we're going to do a caution at a quarter of a mile before the wreck so that everybody can slow down. If you can't slow a race car down in a quarter of a mile, then you've got many, many more problems than just brakes, I can assure you. Okay. Anyway, Memorial Day. The real reason I wanted to have this was to tell you about this book right here, Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. It's a big book. It's 1,100 pages, and it's not an easy read. But if you're an American and you love America and you don't want America to become what's depicted in this book, or in the really crappy movie they made in 3 parts, but I do own because you probably should see it, okay, then you do not want people like Senator Elizabeth Warren offering up a bill that would essentially create the type of government that they had in Atlas Shrugged. And what's interesting is in the movie, when it starts, they talk about no more airplanes, no more automobiles for the most part, because gasoline's $8 a gallon. We're heading there now. We got to open up the free market, folks. We got to take back our energy independence. You know, I don't think there's a country in the world that can extract natural resources as cleanly and as cheaply as the United States of America. So if you really want to help the global warming or global climate change issue, then wouldn't you want it done by the cleanest people that can do it? But to see, the problem is this is where all the funding is America. And this is where all the bitching is. So we can go back to $2 a gallon gasoline. And you don't need to have President Trump to come back, although that'd be cool, to do it. What you need to do is open up the American oil reserves. And for those of you that might disagree with me and say, well, there are more leases out there than there were during the entire Trump administration. It's not a lease that gets you oil. It's permits that allow you to drill. So look at the difference between oil leases and oil permits. And you will see that they have been restricted ever since that idiot became president. Oh, sorry. So look, I wish you a great day. I'll say ta-ta for now. Read Atlas Shrugged. There's a really long diatribe in there that you could actually skip, but it's good, and it's a good read. And if you can't read the book, at least see the movie. You'll get the essence of it. And then if you agree that that's the way the government wants to go, please go to Venezuela, because they tried it. It doesn't work. Or you could go back to Russia, or you could go to Ukraine. Okay, both are corrupt. We just picked which corruption we want. I don't know. Anyway, happy Memorial Day. For those of you that are Gold Star families, you have my sincerest thanks for the sacrifices your loved ones made on my behalf, and also the sacrifices you made on my behalf. And you will always be in my thoughts and prayers. Have a great day.